Final Fantasy 14 6.1 is the post content for Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker, which released not too long ago. This is a new tale, new story, and, well, we want to know if it's at the moment worth getting into now or just waiting until all the patch content's out before the next expansion drops. We're here to tell you about that and more. I'm Daryl.
This is Dion, and this is Where We Stand. Let's go into our history of Final Fantasy XIV. So, it's a little interesting, right? You're the more consistent player right now. I personally have been playing since before the new release, right? Before the reboot.
Before the Rebellion Born, yeah.
For 2-3 months, it was absolutely terrible. And then I played in the alpha, I played in the beta, I played at launch. I played heavily in Heaven's Word, at least for the first patch in Heaven's Word, and then I've never been consistent ever since. I've been on and off. There's been other reasons. It's been time. I don't have time to play. Interest has been low in some cases, but the story has always remained true, and I've always enjoyed that about Final Fantasy.
Yeah, and in my case, I mean, I if you haven't seen it already, you can go back and watch our Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker video where we went into our experience a bit more in detail, just a bit more detail, but just to recount, I started Final Fantasy XIV during that 3-month, free trial or whatever they had when Realm Reborn dropped. I think, yeah, it was Realm Reborn because Heaven's Sword wasn't out yet.
I remember.
And since then, I had essentially disappeared for 3 to 4 years, and then around 2018, early 2018 is when I started up again, and I started picking up and playing more regularly. So it's basically my main MMO of choice.
Let's hit a little bit about the narrative of this 6.1 chapter. So the narrative, I'm going to agree with Daryl. It's a little bit of a lighter tone on this narrative.
After the weight of Endwalker, you kind of need to ease off of it a little bit.
True, and they managed to do that, and it wasn't crazy, right? It wasn't too much of a let off. It was just enough to, It's like started a new adventure, which was super exciting, right? Because you're like, oh, where are they going to take this? Super cool. I thought it was a little slow getting started, but it was interesting. What kept me on my toes for this one is it really got you into what was going on, right? Like, oh, what's going to happen? Oh, we have this little treasure map. Yeah, we got this going on, right? So it really slowly got you in narratively. And I really like that, even though they sacrificed it with being a little slow in right in the beginning, which made sense from a storytelling perspective.
Since 6.1 essentially starts you off, who was formerly the Warrior of Light, you are now an adventurer. Again, it kind of treats you as if, hey, you've been gone a while, probably because, that the dev team probably expected players to be like, okay, bye, see you when the next patch drops. So the game kind of treats you as if you've been gone for a while, narratively speaking, and you were just keeping busy. So they slowly but surely roll out some of the cast to you to hang out with, to talk, and this thing there before you start sticking your nose in places you don't belong. As usual, you just shouldn't do that, but we do it anyway. Damn it. The lighter tone, as I was talking about earlier, is a welcome change to just the behemoth, at least tonally, that Endwalker was. So it's kind of like one of those things of it from a Realm Reborn to Endwalker. It's just been constantly rising. Well, you kind of plateaued in Stormblood, but then it started rising again, and now we have to kind of just chill. Still give you enough story to be like, huh? Okay, that's weird. I.e. all the Void Sense stuff. I always thought the Void Sense stuff was stuff that was when it was introduced in some of the side raids and this thing and that, I was like, this feels like it should be a bigger deal. So I'm happy to see it talked about more in the main narrative.
Yeah, and I like how they introduce, it's not a new concept necessarily, but how it's an older, let's say an older concept that they finally start to build on, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the strength of these Final Fantasy. The ability to do that is phenomenal, and it just keeps you interested. Now, you're going back to the Crystal Tower, which I still haven't paid attention to and probably should revisit. Story-wise, for the second time they've implied this, to understand the Void Sense stuff, but it was, it's really cool that they can pull back from like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
When the game like first launched. I mean,
it's impressive.
It's impressive for sure. And I like this direction. I like that, stay lighter. I think the next portion will start going back to a more, let's say, moderate tone. It's not going to stay light.
Yeah.
Because we're going right into the Void Sense. So that's pretty dark, starting off from right there. So I expect it to stay moderate, but for this piece, it's just really getting you into the swing of things. And I think it's going to really kick into gear after this, I should say. I think this is the only slow part we're going to get, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And with every new patch comes a new dungeon and occasionally trial, if I remember correctly. But in this case, just a dungeon. You only get one. I forgot the name of this dungeon, but it is a dungeon that I'd say it kind of follows the lighter side of things. When you get the map that with the Stinian in the game, you are essentially sent to I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the specifics of the island, but you're essentially looking for whatever secrets that area in the dungeon holds. But to do that, you have to get through several bosses and blah 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 blah. The standard MMO stuff. There is one boss in particular from that we've seen in the trailers, or the trailer for this patch, that I was really excited to fight, and that was the one that spins you like a top. It's not necessarily a revolutionary thing, but it's just a fun thing that I look at and that I saw and was like, okay, you introduced that. You're gonna do that a lot more often, aren't you? That was my thought.
True. I would say that dungeon it's like okay. It's not amazing. It's not terrible. It's okay. Final boss is very interesting with the spinning thing. Only boss that's interesting to me. I don't think I liked any other ones.
It's the only one I remembered. So yeah, point taken.
True. And I'm not a big fan of the design, though the design matches where the location of where it takes place.
Yeah.
So I can't fault it for that. I'm just not a big fan personally. There's much cooler dungeons in my opinion. Though the dungeons, they all leave a taste of for me personally, because it's kind of very samey on the dungeon side.
That said, apparently some of the reworks they did to the older dungeons are very much appreciated by the community.
Very much. I've played several of those dungeons. I thought it was necessary. It makes basically those dungeons match what you can expect throughout the game,
which is very appreciated.
Yes, because the old dungeons, they were trying some, they were more open, right? More exploratory.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool, but they didn't work.
Not for this kind of game.
No, it ends up being, now they're making them more straightforward, making the bosses mechanics a little more fitting for the game, I think, which is good. I think the only downside, in my opinion, is you're getting the same types of dungeons, right? Mm-hmm. There's just no innovation here, and that's the part that they have really cool bosses, really cool detail, design generally. I just wish they would innovate a little bit on the dungeon side.
Yeah.
And I think they will. I think they've announced some dungeon stuff, probably more like mythic dungeons from WoW, but
we'll see.
It's a good start, and I hope they find a way to push it.
Yeah, and I will say that it would be weird if they did go back there and innovate them and actually trick out those dungeons, because I'm like, okay, great, but you realize that's in the beginning of the game, right? You're gonna need to do that with all the other stuff you just did.
Yes.
So that
they need to do it with the later dungeons, not the earlier ones. I would keep everything else the same, and I would just try to do something different with the dungeons. It's hard to do, but
yeah,
that's my one challenge for them.
Yeah, and I can.
Some people also like the dungeons, so.
Steps in the, I think they're taking very, very small baby steps, but steps in the right direction generally with trying to just improve things, which is something that that this patch and probably the patches to come up until the the inevitable new expansion, I feel like that's kind of the steps they're taking, which, if, in my opinion, after I just did a 10-year long saga in this thing and the other, I would also be like, okay, now we can work on the stuff we're leading up to the next expansion, sure, but let's clean up the shit we didn't have time for. let's hurry up with that. But that's me. That's my thought. Speaking of thoughts, let's get to our final thoughts.
Sure, sounds good. I will take the first step here. So 6.1, I enjoyed the lighter tone. I enjoyed the story. One thing I didn't mention earlier is I do wish they would innovate and add gameplay into the narrative. I think they do a poor job of having gameplay and narrative, and it's really just narrative or just gameplay. And I would like to see them do a little better job. It was the same thing in my Endwalker review. Otherwise, I thought the narrative was great as per usual, and the direction looks really good, and I'm excited for where they can take this going forward. I mean, what can they do over the next 10 years? That is the question, and I'm excited. I'm excited to just go through the narrative.
Yep, and in my case, I'm looking forward to where the story might be going, but only time will tell where that will be. Either way around, I'm definitely along for the ride. I'm excited for any other improvements they're going to make. Like, this isn't going to happen fully until like later, but I can't wait for the graphics overhaul. Like, that's going to be very welcome. I'm sick of looking at the muddy looking ground and whatnot that they've admitted that in the later expansions, they were like, this scene is ruined by the weird shade of the grass. I'm very excited for that going forward.
Alrighty, well, I think that's all we got for now. Thanks to you all for stopping through to listen here at DuoQueue. If you think we might have glossed over something, feel free to say so in the comments. And don't forget to share and leave a like. Next time you're waiting for a party or searching for a lobby, feel free to tune in again while you wait. See ya!
Later, guys. And I can't wait for Data Center to drop and for me to not to be able to log in for a month. That's going to be great.